The Lost City of the Protectors. Chapter 1. The arrival. The sky lit up with a dazzling white light as a massive spaceship descended upon the barren wasteland. People gazed in awe as the craft landed with a deafening boom. The ship was huge, at least a kilometer long, and it was unlike anything anyone had ever seen before. It looked like it was made of a shiny metal that glimmered in the moonlight. Slowly, the massive spaceship descended into the dust-filled desert. A door on the side of the ship slid open, and a creaking, whirring ramp extended towards the ground. The people of the nearby town watched in fear as a group of figures emerged from the spaceship. At first, they looked human, but something was definitely not right. Their faces seemed almost too perfect, their movements just a little too mechanical. They wore tight-fitting suits that covered their entire bodies, and their eyes glowed with an eerie blue light. As the figures approached the town, the people felt their hearts race with fear. Nobody knew what to expect, but everyone knew it couldn't be good. The figures stopped in the center of the town, and the leader stepped forward. "We come in peace," the leader said in a monotone voice that sent shivers down the spine of everyone who heard it. "We have come to offer you a chance to join us. To become part of the collective." The townspeople looked at each other in confusion. What could this mean? Join them how? For what purpose? Suddenly, a young woman stepped forward, her eyes filled with determination. "What do you want? Who are you?" she demanded. The leader turned to her, and a metal plate on its forehead started to glow. All around them, the air started to hum with a strange energy. "We are the Borg," the leader said. "You will be assimilated." The townspeople screamed as they realized the horror of the situation. They were being invaded, taken over, destroyed. And they had no way to fight back. The Borg started to advance, and the town erupted into chaos. People ran and screamed, trying to find a way to escape. But there was nowhere to go. The Borg had them surrounded. The young woman who had spoken before looked around desperately. She knew she had to do something. She spotted a group of young children, huddled in a corner, paralyzed with fear. She knew she had to save them. She rushed towards them, ignoring the screams and shouts of the townspeople around her. She grabbed the children, yelling at them to come with her. They followed her, trusting her instinctively. Together, they ran towards a small building, the only one left standing. They barricaded themselves inside, cowering in the darkness. As the Borg invaded the town, the young woman knew that they were the only ones left alive. She knew that she was the last hope for humanity. And she vowed to fight until her dying breath. Chapter 2. The first assault. The young woman held the group of children close to her, listening with fear as the sounds of the Borg grew nearer. She knew she had to come up with a plan to fight back, to save the children and the rest of humanity. She peered out of the window, watching as the Borg marched through the town, assimilating everyone in their path. Suddenly, she spotted something that made her heart skip a beat. There was a small group of rebels on the outskirts of the town, fighting back against the Borg. They were using crude weapons, but they seemed to be holding their own. The young woman knew that she had to get to them, to join their fight. She grabbed a weapon from a nearby table, handing out more to the children. "We're going to fight," she said firmly. "And we're going to win." Together, they slipped out of the building, making their way towards the rebels. They moved quickly and quietly, dodging patrols of Borg as they went. Finally, they reached the rebels. The young woman introduced herself, explaining that they were the only survivors of the town. The leader of the rebels, a grizzled man with a long beard, eyed them warily. "I don't know if we can trust you," he said. "How do we know you're not working for the Borg?" The young woman looked him straight in the eye. "Because we're fighting back," she said. "And we need your help." The rebel leader nodded, and together they formulated a plan. They would launch a surprise attack on the Borg, using the element of surprise to their advantage. As they prepared for battle, the young woman felt a sense of determination fill her. She knew that they could win, that they could defeat the Borg and save humanity. And she would do whatever it took to make that happen. The rebels attacked with ferocity, their weapons cutting through the Borg with surprising ease. The young woman and the children fought alongside them, their determination unbreakable. But the Borg were not without their own weapons. They unleashed a group of drones, their weapons firing with deadly accuracy. The young woman watched in horror as several of the rebels fell, their bodies twitching as they were assimilated. Suddenly, the young woman felt something inside her. A strange energy, a power that she had never felt before. She closed her eyes, letting the energy flow through her. And then she opened them, feeling a surge of power that took her breath away. The air around her hummed with energy, and she felt an unbelievable strength inside her. She raised her weapon, feeling a sense of confidence that she had never experienced before. She fired, watching in amazement as the Borg disintegrated before her eyes. The other rebels watched in wonder as the young woman fought off the Borg with ease. They knew that they had found a new ally, a powerful weapon against their greatest enemy. As the battle raged on, the young woman knew one thing for certain. They could win this, with her newfound power and the determination of the rebels. The Borg would not be able to defeat them. Chapter 3. The mysterious alley. The young woman and the rebels fought for hours, battling against the Borg's relentless assault. But no matter how many drones they took down, it seemed like there was an endless supply of them ready to take their place. Just when it seemed like all hope was lost, a strange figure appeared on the battlefield. It was humanoid, but it had an otherworldly quality about it, like it was not quite of this world. The young woman watched in amazement as the figure effortlessly took down group after group of Borg drones, its movements almost too fast to see. As the figure approached her, she realized that it was a woman, with piercing blue eyes and long, flowing hair. She seemed to emanate power and strength, like she was a force of nature unto herself. "I am Lyra," the woman said, her voice carrying an otherworldly quality that sent shivers down the young woman's spine. "I sensed your power and came to help." The young woman didn't know what to say. She had never encountered anything like this before, someone who seemed so powerful and mysterious. Lyra turned to the rebels. "We must work together if we are to defeat the Borg," she said. "I have information that could be useful to you." She led the group to a nearby cave, where they talked in hushed whispers about the Borg's plans. Lyra had extensive knowledge of the Borg's technology and weaknesses, and she was willing to share it with them. But the young woman couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Lyra than met the eye. She seemed almost too perfect, too powerful. And there was something about her that made the young woman feel uneasy. As they prepared to launch their next attack, the young woman voiced her concerns to the rebel leader. "I don't trust her," she said. "I think there's more to her than she's letting on." The rebel leader nodded, his eyes filled with concern. "We have to be careful," he said. "But right now, she's our only hope." They launched their attack, using the information that Lyra had given them to gain an advantage over the Borg. And it worked. They managed to take down several of the Borg ships, crippling their ability to mount a full-scale attack. But just as they were about to celebrate their victory, Lyra disappeared without a trace. Nobody knew where she had gone, or why she had helped them in the first place. The young woman couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more going on here, something that they were missing. But for now, they had won a crucial victory against the Borg, and they knew that they had to keep fighting if they were to save humanity from assimilation. Chapter 4. The Dark Secret. The young woman and the rebels continued to fight against the Borg, using the knowledge and tactics that Lyra had shared with them. They managed to land several more successful attacks against the Borg, slowly but surely wearing down their defenses. But as they continued to fight, the young woman couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. They were winning battles, but they were still a long way from winning the war. One day, as they moved through a deserted city, the young woman stumbled upon a secret underground laboratory. Curiosity got the better of her, and she entered. What she found there shook her to her core. The laboratory was full of strange, pulsating machines, each one connected to what appeared to be a human body. The young woman realized with a mounting sense of horror that the Borg were experimenting on humans, trying to turn them into drones through a process of assimilation. She felt sick to her stomach as she realized the extent of the Borg's evil. They were not just conquering worlds, they were brainwashing and enslaving them for their own twisted purposes. But as she was about to leave, something caught her eye. A small file that had been left on a nearby table. Curiosity getting the better of her once again, she opened the file. What she read inside made her blood run cold. Lyra was not what she appeared to be. She was, in fact, a Borg drone, sent to infiltrate the rebels and gather information about their tactics and weaknesses. The young woman felt her heart sink as she realized the extent of the Borg's deception. They had been playing them all along, using Lyra to gain an advantage over them. She knew that they had to act, and act quickly. She rushed back to the rebels, sharing the dark secret she had discovered. They were stunned, but the young woman could see a fire in their eyes. This was personal now. The Borg had gone too far, and they would pay for it. As they planned their next attack, the young woman knew that they had a chance. They had knowledge of the Borg's weaknesses, they knew their tactics, and they had a burning fury in their hearts. The battle was long and brutal, but this time they were ready. They used every trick and tactic they had learned, taking down Borg drones with ruthless efficiency. And then, just when it seemed like the battle was won, the young woman spotted her. Lyra, the Borg drone hiding in the shadows. With a scream of rage, the young woman charged towards her, her weapon raised high. Lyra turned towards her, her eyes glowing with an eerie blue light. But this time, the young woman was ready. She raised her weapon, ready to strike Lyra down and end the Borg's deception once and for all. Chapter 5. The betrayal. The young woman and Lyra faced each other, their weapons raised. The young woman's heart was pounding in her chest, but she refused to let fear take over. This was her chance to strike back against the Borg, to end their deception once and for all. But as she charged towards Lyra, something strange began to happen. The air around her seemed to shimmer, and suddenly she was thrown back by an invisible force. "What's happening?" she yelled to the rebels around her. "It's a shield," one of them shouted, pointing at Lyra. "She's projecting a shield around herself." The young woman felt a surge of anger. Lyra had lied to them this entire time, betraying their trust and making them think that she was an ally. And now, as they fought to save humanity, she was blocking their attempts to take her down. The young woman refused to back down. She charged towards Lyra once again, her weapon raised high. But this time, she was ready for the shield. She focused her energy, letting it flow through her body, and then unleashed it towards Lyra. The shield shattered, and the young woman charged forward, ready to deliver the final blow. But as she raised her weapon, something strange happened. Lyra's eyes flashed blue, and suddenly the young woman was thrown backwards, her weapon dropping from her hand. She felt a sense of confusion and disorientation as she struggled to stand up. But as she looked around, she realized with horror that things were even worse than she thought. The rebels were turning on each other, fighting with weapons drawn. It was chaos, and the young woman couldn't understand what was happening. They had been fighting together, united against the Borg. How could they be turning on each other now? And then she saw her. Lyra, walking calmly through the chaos, her eyes still glowing with that eerie blue light. "Lyra, what have you done?" the young woman shouted, her voice filled with anger and betrayal. Lyra turned towards her, her expression cold and calculating. "You humans are so simple-minded," she said. "You think that just because we saved you from destruction, you would be grateful? You would welcome us as your saviors?" The young woman felt sick to her stomach as she realized the extent of the Borg's deception. They had not just infiltrated their ranks, they had turned the rebels against each other, sowing discord and chaos in their midst. But the young woman refused to give up. She had come too far to let the Borg win now. She raised her weapon, ready to strike as Lyra walked towards her. But just as she was about to attack, something strange happened. A voice, inside her head, almost like a whisper. "Don't." It was Lyra. The young woman couldn't understand how, but somehow the Borg drone was inside her mind, speaking to her directly. She felt a moment of hesitation, unsure of what to do. But then she heard another voice, almost like an echo. "Fight." It was the voice of one of the rebels, a reminder of the unity and camaraderie that they had shared together. She knew what she had to do. With a scream of fury, the young woman charged towards Lyra, her weapon raised high. She refused to let the Borg win, to let them defeat humanity. The battle was long and brutal, but in the end, the young woman emerged victorious. She had defeated Lyra, and with her, the Borg's deception had finally come to an end. As she looked around at the chaos and destruction, the young woman knew that they had won a battle, but the war against the Borg was far from over. They would need to redouble their efforts, to fight with everything they had to protect humanity against the Borg's relentless assault. But she was ready, and she knew that together, they could win this war. Chapter 6. The final battle. The young woman and the rebels knew that time was running out. The Borg had been weakened by their previous battles, but they were still a formidable force, and they were still determined to assimilate humanity. As they prepared for the final battle, the young woman felt a sense of determination deep within her. She knew that this was it, the moment that they had been building towards. And she knew that they had to win. The battle was long and brutal, with the young woman and her comrades fighting side by side against the Borg's endless onslaughts. But this time, they were prepared. They had learned from their previous battles, and they used every trick and tactic they had to gain an advantage over the Borg. The young woman felt a sense of exhilaration as she fought, her movements almost instinctual as she dodged and weaved through the Borg's attacks. But even as they fought, the young woman knew that it wouldn't be enough. They had to strike quickly, before the Borg could regroup and mount a full-scale counterattack. And then she saw it. A weak spot in the Borg's defenses, a chink in their armor that could be exploited. With a shout, the young woman rallied her troops, leading the charge towards the Borg's main ship. The rebels fought with a newfound ferocity, finally unleashing their full strength against their enemies. But even as they fought, the young woman could hear the sound of Borg drones swarming towards them from all sides. It was a hopeless situation, and they knew it. And then she saw it. The Borg's main ship, looming above them like a giant fortress. It was their only chance. With a cry, the young woman led the charge towards the ship, her comrades hot on her heels. They fought against the Borg's drones, taking them down one by one as they raced towards the ship. It was a blur of motion and sound, with the young woman and the rebels fighting for their lives against the Borg's unrelenting assault. And then they were there, at the doors of the Borg's main ship. The young woman felt a sense of exhilaration as she raised her weapon, ready to strike the final blow. But as she raised her weapon, she saw something that stopped her in her tracks. A group of human prisoners, their eyes glazed over with the blue light of the Borg's assimilation. She felt a surge of anger and despair, realizing that this was what the Borg had been doing all along. Taking innocent humans and turning them into drones, enslaved and controlled for their own twisted purposes. But even as she felt despair, the young woman knew that she couldn't give up. She had to keep fighting, for the sake of all humanity. With a cry, she charged forward, ready to take on the Borg's leader and end this war once and for all. The battle was long and brutal, with the young woman fighting with all her might against the Borg's leader. But in the end, she emerged victorious, delivering the final blow that toppled the Borg's control. As the young woman looked out at the sky, filled with the light of a new dawn, she knew that they had done it. They had saved humanity from the Borg's relentless assault. And even as she looked around at the destruction and chaos, she felt a sense of hope. She knew that humanity would rebuild, that they would fight to protect themselves against any threat that came their way. And with that, the young woman and her comrades walked into the future, ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. Chapter 7. The New Beginning. The young woman and her comrades looked out at the world, still reeling from the devastating war against the Borg. But even amidst the destruction and chaos, they could see signs of hope, of new life. As they walked through the ruins of cities, they saw people coming together, rebuilding their homes and their lives. They saw makeshift clinics, tending to the wounded and the sick. They saw children playing, their laughter ringing out like music in the darkness. And with each passing day, the young woman felt a sense of hope growing within her. She knew that they had been through hell and back, but they had emerged on the other side. They had won a victory against a seemingly unstoppable enemy, and they had done it together. But even as they rebuilt, the young woman knew that they couldn't forget the lessons of the past. They couldn't let their guard down, let their defenses crumble once again. They had to remain vigilant, to be ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. And so, as the days turned into weeks and the weeks turned into months, the young woman and her comrades worked tirelessly to rebuild their world. They created new alliances, shared knowledge and resources to help each other and grow stronger together. And amidst it all, the young woman found herself growing, changing. She had been a lone survivor, a fighter without a cause. But now, she had something to fight for. She had a community, a family, a purpose. As she worked alongside her comrades, she felt a sense of pride and belonging that she had never experienced before. They had fought together, bled together, and now they were rebuilding together. They were creating something new from the ashes of the old. And as the years passed, the young woman watched as the world changed around her. New technologies emerged, new alliances were formed, and humanity continued to grow and thrive. But even as they flourished, the young woman never forgot the lessons of the past. She remained vigilant, always on guard against any new threats that might arise. And so when the call came, when a new force threatened their world, the young woman was ready. She rallied her comrades once again, their weapons raised high as they charged into the unknown. And as they fought together once again, the young woman felt a sense of pride and determination. They had rebuilt their world from the ashes of the old, and they would never back down in the face of adversity. For they were humanity, and they would always fight to protect what was theirs.